Welcome to the Youth Initiative 2020 Winter Podcast. Our brave new social world. This podcast was created by two Youth Initiative micro schools. A total of 13 students and 2 teachers working together over Zoom, masked and at distance over the last 2 weeks. Today we will be taking a closer look on how this pandemic has made us feel. What sacrifices have we made? And through it all, how have we stayed connected? What games do we play? How are our parents parenting? How do we go to school? How are we navigating this brave new social world? Stay tuned to find out.
On March 13th, 2020, Youth Initiative High School in the small town of Viroqua, Wisconsin, called off in-person classes for 3 weeks due to the looming threat of COVID-19. Unbeknownst to everyone, there would be no more in-person school for the remainder of the year. Along with almost every school in the country, YIHS closed its doors and went virtual. Over spring and summer, the question facing all schools was how to get back to in-person learning. YIHS sent out surveys and held town hall meetings outside and came up with a plan for in-person learning that centered on mask wearing and outdoor classrooms. Unlike over half of U.S. high school students, YIHS met back together in person in late August.
We've spent the past 6 weeks having classes outside, setting up classrooms with tents around town, sort of like a university campus. It worked very well except for the uncertainty of weather. On the worst days, having classes inside was inevitable. But weather wasn't the only problem. In September, Wisconsin became a coronavirus hotspot, with one of the highest rates of new cases per capita in the United States. The amount of cases also started growing in Vernon County, where YIHS is located. Knowing this, we knew that it would not be safe for us to continue in-person learning in the same way. This is Sean Lavoie. He's a teacher at YIHS. How do you think the 6-week period of in-person school went?
The 6-week period when we were all together as a school was a little bit like summer camp or a little bit like a dream. Like you just didn't know how long it would last, and it just felt like it could end at any time. But it was so good to be together after having been away from each other for so long. It really meant a lot as a teacher to be with my students and to see them, and I think it meant a lot for the students to be able to see each other and to kind of feel that sense of we're all in this together.
When did you start to think that maybe having in-person school wouldn't be possible?
Well, it became clear with some really cold days, and then also with the COVID numbers going up in Wisconsin, that our plan would not last forever and that we needed to create another one. We needed to have a plan B for pivoting to more virtual. But I think the most important thing was for us, students, faculty, parents, we wanted to maintain some in-person connection. And so the trick was, how do we do that?
I know that the new plan for the micro schools took a lot of time, and so what was the process for that like, and what was the process for that?
And so that was a really intensive process. Every day there was a new draft schedule. Every day there was new ideas for how to structure these micro schools, these independent studies, how we were going to do math, how we were going to do foreign language, how we were going to do classes that had mixed levels in them. The whole process had been going on over the summer into the fall, but really it was in October, the last 2 weeks that we were all together, that we really got down to business and created a plan together.
For our micro school, podcasting, we meet in what used to be an old tobacco warehouse, now the largest used bookstore in the state of Wisconsin, Driftless Books and Music. We are surrounded by old books and art, and we share our little room upstairs with fascinating antique instruments and novels. Youth Initiative has always been a unique case. Our usual school building was the original high school of Viroqua, a brick behemoth over 100 years old with loud radiators and creaking floors. Even before COVID, we would hold some classes outdoors, so it makes sense that Youth Initiative would continue to maintain this unique approach to learning environments. Our micro schools are scattered throughout Viroqua, all thanks to the graciousness of the community, who opened their doors to us. We hold class 4 days a week in old buildings, restaurants, and circus studios, separate yet united.
Then the bomb hit.
We had our first positive cases in school the weekend before micro schools were set to begin. In the first week, only half of the micro schools were in session in person due to these cases. The others were able to learn through online applications such as Zoom and Google Meet. Since it's only been a week, it's difficult to gather how well the new plan is working, but with the new micro schools, it was possible to continue in-person learning following a COVID outbreak in the school. Those not exposed were able to meet in person with their small groups, while everyone else attended class via video calling. The idea of the micro schools already made it much easier to continue in-person learning during this uncertain time of the pandemic.
Everything nowadays is uncertain. The future looms hazy, unknowable, just beyond our reach, and we've learned to be wary of long-term plans. If anything good has come of 2020, it's that we've learned to live with change, to invite it in, to work with it, and to do it in small steps, in tiny groups, in micro schools. In the beginning, it felt like our hopes were dashed. It felt impossible to plan for the future, and in a sense that's true, but hope still thrives. This is Charlie Hudnall.
For the last question, I just want to know, what do you think is on the horizon?
The horizon, it's a beautiful thing. It's where the sun meets the hills. I think there are a lot of good things coming, and probably some bad things too. I mean, you expect the worst, but hope for the best. And so I think Youth Initiative is going to keep producing change makers and artists and people who have hope and light in their lives. And that's amazing.
So yes, the future is uncertain, but so is everything. Together we weave and wade through the unknown, harvesting the good and weeding out the bad, trying our best to manage in hard times. I think Youth Initiative is uniquely practiced in rolling with the punches. And if there's one thing we're learning, it's how to navigate them with courage, magnanimity, and reverence. To hold on to the hope of the sunrise while still admiring the sunset, all of us together, where the sky meets the land.
And now, gamers as guides.
Zoom birthday parties, Google Meet meetings, video chat dates. In the face of the pandemic, we're being forced to be social in new ways. For many of us, this is awkward. We're not digital natives. But for others, this turn to virtual community is second nature.
Hi, my name is Dave.
I'm Rowan.
I'm Vincent.
These three are my students at the Youth Initiative High School. We talked about the gamer community that they are a part of. I wanted to know, can these dudes really be harbingers of a new virtual social world? What can I learn from them? Okay, let's start with the basics. Gaming is a big deal. In the US, on average, people play 7.61 hours of video games a week. The 26 to 35-year-old age range play the most out of any age group above 18 years old. So what about teens? How many hours do teens play?
Well, we don't know exactly, as surveys of teen gameplay are hard to come by. But in our tiny, very unscientific survey of the 3 gamers involved in this story, we found that teens play between 1 and 10 hours of online games a day. That's roughly 7 to 70 hours a week.
It depends on the week. If I'm on break, I'll play more like 80 hours.
And there's definitely been a big uptick since the pandemic hit. Here's an example of how it goes.
I started up my computer after a long day of school and called up a few of my friends. We were about to start an adventure in the game of Rust. So we spawn on an island as a naked on the beach. Rust is a survival game with toxic players, and the goal is to survive from the 100 plus players on the island. We then explored the island, gathered resources, and built a base. After we built our base, we ran into our new neighbors. They dedicated all their time towards making our time on the island miserable. Over the next few hours, we got into fights with them and gathered resources so we could destroy their base and get them off the island once and for all. Once we got the necessary guns and explosives, my friends and I ran over to their base. With a lot on the line and high on adrenaline, we began firing our rockets. The moment we fired our first rocket, our neighbors started fighting back, and a long battle took place. The excitement I get from working together with my teammates to defeat our enemy is the reason why I enjoy playing.
Millions of teens all around the world, for literally billions of hours a week, staring at their computers, each in their own rooms, playing games together. They're isolated, but connected. Sound familiar? Yet, it's not the same. Teens spend this overwhelming amount of screen time in totally different ways than most adults do. They're not emailing or Facebooking or texting or doom scrolling. They're playing multiplayer, multi-level online games. Games like
Rust, Minecraft,
League of Legends, Call of Duty,
World of Warcraft, Fortnite, Among Us,
and scores of others. These games, played remotely with people they know and people they'll never meet, dominate their lives in a way that few things have ever in history. So what do teens get out of it?
It's like sports with the online world. Just like you might play a game of pickup, you find a group of friends or strangers and play with the same goals, to prove your skills and have fun.
My first time playing a game when I was about 7. My dad had this old game on his computer, and it was pretty slow-paced but strategic. I liked it that it was really difficult, and you need to learn everything about it in order to do good at it. I started playing games more when I got Minecraft. I played it a lot with my friends. I liked how I could play a game with my friends, because before I didn't have a game that I could do that with. And I also really liked how much you could do in it. I played a few more multiplayer games after that. I got this one game like 4 or 5 years ago called Geometry Dash. It was a pretty simple game. You just have a cube and you click to jump over spikes. You can also change into like a ship game mode where you fly kind of. The game itself is really simple, but it ended up becoming a really popular game and one of the most difficult games there is. You can create levels in the game and upload them yourself. Most of the levels are pretty simple, but the people started to get good at building levels and ended up now they're able to create levels with like usually hundreds of thousands or even millions of objects sometimes. People's skill kept increasing at the game too. It started out some hard levels were thought to be impossible, and now people can beat those levels. When I started the game, there was this one level that was the hardest level in the game, and I thought it was like basically impossible. I didn't see how people could do anything on it, and now I'm able to beat things like that.
Well, perhaps you're feeling like I am. I kind of see the appeal. Kind of. But deep down, I don't buy it. I mean, I played video games when I was a kid. Isn't gaming just a form of escapism?
It can be, but there's a lot more to it. You can use it as a way to socialize, to make relationships, or even to make a living if you want.
Okay, I didn't want to have to bring this up, but isn't this just a giant ruse for pure laziness? A profound waste of time?
If you do it in your free time, it isn't unproductive. It is the same as any other thing that you would do that isn't productive. And in some cases it can be productive. Any time you spend enjoying yourself is not a waste of time.
Sure, That's a good point. But this isn't just, pardon the pun, fun and games. These games can be toxic. There's all the blood and guts from the first-person shooting. There's the sexist, racist, and just plain gross insults hurled around in-game by anonymous trolls.
There's a lot of toxicity, but not every game has it. You don't have to play a game if it has it, and even if you do, you can always ignore, leave, block, or report them. And if you care about violence in games, then don't play games with it.
The old free choice argument. Fine. It's a free country, I guess. But this is bigger than individual choices. I'm stuck now on the big picture. What is all this time people are choosing to play games doing for the world? The world is real. It has real problems to solve. Reality might be broken, but it's our job to rebuild it. So who's going to do that?
There's a TED Talk of a game designer, Jane McGonigal. She talks about how reality is broken and the importance of games.
Right now, we spend 3 billion hours a week playing online games. Some of you might be thinking, that's a lot of time to spend playing games, maybe too much time, considering how many urgent problems we have to solve in the real world. But actually, according to my research at the Institute for the Future, it's actually the opposite is true. 3 billion hours a week is not nearly enough gameplay to solve the world's most urgent problems. In fact, I believe that if we want to survive the next century on this planet, we need to increase that total dramatically. I've calculated the total we need at 21 billion hours of gameplay every week.
And she's saying this in 2010, 10 years ago. So why does she propose this? Basically, in the game world, you are the most powerful version of yourself. You get drawn in by the possibility of these epic moments or wins.
An epic win is an outcome that is so extraordinarily positive, you had no idea it was even possible until you achieved it. It was almost beyond the threshold of imagination. And when you get there, you are shocked to discover what you're truly capable of. That's an epic win.
In real life, you don't feel that way. When you face a problem, you feel overwhelmed, depressed, anxious, and frustrated.
And this is a problem that a lot of gamers have. We feel that we are not as good in reality as we are in games. And I don't mean just good as in successful, although that's part of it. We do achieve more in game worlds. But I also mean good as in motivated to do something that matters, inspired to collaborate and to cooperate. When we're in game worlds, I believe that many of us become the best version of ourselves, the most likely to help at a moment's notice, the most likely to stick with a problem as long as it takes, to get up after failure and try again.
So gaming produces these super powerful individuals. The problem is using these superpowers for real-world problems.
And so games can be a way for gamers to expand themselves and in turn potentially expand reality. I like this idea. Yet, on a more basic level, I still wonder if gaming represents the kind of social interactions we really want, that we really need. I mean, my students all use pseudonyms online, all limit their amount of personal information that they share. I wonder if these anonymous relationships are actually built on trust.
It depends on the level of trust you're talking about. I wouldn't trust anyone with my personal information like my name, my address, when I first meet them, but I can trust them to work with me to have a fun time in a game.
I've met people that I've known for a long time now through online games and become good friends with them. I even meet people all over the world. I've met people from Romania, Scotland, Ireland, and a lot of other places.
And so I'm beginning to see that maybe there's just two divergent definitions of what it means to be social. For non-gamers, we want our social life to be soul-edifying, authentic. And perhaps our expectations for social intimacy are too lofty, and hence now are outmoded and unattainable. The non-gamer's high bar of trust and insistence on real-world interactions holds us back from reaching out across the world and striking up a relationship with people we don't even know. The non-gamer social world is limited to those who are close to us, who we can see and verify. And we're place-bound in a moment when we can't be in the same place, in a moment when only through the internet, at a distance, can we truly be social.
Two scientists were racing for the good of all mankind. Both of them side by side, so determined, locked in heated battle for the cure that is their prize. But it's so dangerous, but they're determined.
We will now be listening to The Hero's Journey.
The pandemic has shaped our lives in countless ways, but without change, we wouldn't have the most iconic story of all, the hero's journey, the monomyth. The hero's journey begins with a call to adventure, the catalyst that throws the hero into a new and bizarre situation. The hero must face trials, cross thresholds, die and be reborn, and in the end, stand triumphant in a changed world. I set out to find someone with a story like that, and found myself in a Discord call with Berg and Kay, a good friend of mine. The reason Bear's story is unique is because their experience with and fear of the pandemic began much earlier than most in our community. They had just been traveling and became the first person to get tested in Richland Center, Wisconsin. It took 2 weeks for the test to come back, negative luckily, but they were still waiting the day schools let out.
It was like a joke at first of like, haha, with my luck, I could have got it. Yeah, and then like week 2 was like, oh, yeah, I joke about this, but this is a reality. This is a possibility. Humor comes out of like trauma. A lot of people who are afraid laugh. Laughter is like as strong and a reaction similar to crying. I was gonna say nowadays I have dreams about going to potlucks and no one is wearing a mask. Like it's like dreaming about before this. No one is wearing a mask and we just eat food at the potluck and I'll like hug people and I'll wake up from my dream like I just exposed myself to so many people in so many ways, and I like wake up in cold sweat and start like trying to figure out germ tracking of like who was I exposed to, who did I who gave me germs,
Right.
who did I give germs, and then I'll have to be like, oh yeah, no, that was just like not a nightmare, but the 2020 nightmare.
Right.
Not wearing a mask for me now is really weird and really hard because I've been masking around my family. And I've continued in my new living situation. I'm counting the days that I've had a mask on like 24/7. It's been 35 days of me masking. It started because I realized, well, I had a close call exposure with someone with the food pantry, and I realized like there's no space for close calls, because there are just enough little what ifs. My family is also high risk, and so it was kind of like for the physical safety of the people I love, I have to remove my germs because I work a face-to-face job too, and just trying to lessen their exposure and my exposure for the safety of the people I love. And it sucked. It triggered a depressive episode. It was weird and awful. And I couldn't eat dinner with my family anymore. And I couldn't like do a whole bunch of things with my family basically. It just sucked. Yeah, I don't know. It's also just a really weird lineup with growing up that I'm not getting to milk out these last few months of being a kid. Navigating that with my brother. There were a few times early on that I would take him out to try and, because he's homeschooling, so to try and keep him from going stir crazy because he has no contact with his friends at all. But just trying to navigate such a big, scary thing for a 6-year-old. And he would ask questions about, like, when do you think this will be over? Um, there's a memory that's hitting me that made me cry the day of. Every Monday, the teacher would call each one of her students, and she called my brother. At some point near the summer, it was the last phone call, and my brother asked Miss Salisbury to call him back once she knew when he could come back to school. And every call, he would always end it of okay, I love you, take care, please call me if you know when we can come back. And just absolute heartbreak of I can't imagine how this is going to affect younger generations.
I lost something in the hills. I lost something in the hills.
So the radio at the rock shop is possessed and broken.
Yeah.
So my only option right now is country music or the Amelie soundtrack.
Wait, how is it possessed? Our conversation eventually veered off into other avenues, the official interview without a concrete resolution. I set out to tell a tale of a hero's journey, but I was missing a key part, the end. This pandemic is far from over, and as frustrating as it is, we're still in this. As of now, the finish line is still far beyond the horizon. So what do we do? What is left to do other than wait? Only time will tell what the future holds, but the best thing we can do for ourselves and our community is to make it through the present, one beginning at a time.
Next, a look inside life at the YIHS boarding house. YIHS senior Xiaohang Wang tells the story.
Do you prefer to live in a small apartment by yourself or in a big house with so many people surrounding? Someone may like the apartment better as they like privacy and quietness, while others who enjoy lively atmosphere and interactions may choose the second option. As a boarding Chinese student in Youth Initiative, it's really a big transition for me, since I spent living with only my mom for over 16 years, and suddenly being with over other 14 people in one house. I'm always uncertain about whether I made a good choice to live here, as I often feel joyful hearing people's jokes, but also a little upset when being disturbed by noise and people's different habits. With these concerns and questions, I decided to ask Sebastian, who is a senior and spends more time living here than me, and can usually give me the best suggestions. And here is the interview between me and him.
Hi, Sebastian. So, thank you first for doing this interview with me. So, as we all know, you are one of the earlier students who came to the boarding house last year and almost stayed for a whole year in it. So, can you tell us some of your unique experience of living in here?
Yeah, well, I have stayed for a whole year. The boarding house, it was a welcome change for me. At my old home, it worked, but I never really was able to connect with people I went to school with because of the place that I lived being very, very far away from my schooling facility. Something the boarding house has really let me do is become much more connected to the community and really share more experiences with other students in and outside of class. Yeah.
What do you think is the difference between living here and living in your original house, which is in Milwaukee?
Yeah, back in my original house, I had a lot of trouble really getting anything done. It felt like it was a completely different space than when I was at school. So a lot of the time I wouldn't do any homework or I wasn't that great of a student, honestly. But when coming to a boarding school, I am able to treat it as much more of a learning environment throughout the entire day instead of just when I'm actually at school. And of course, it's great being in contact with all kinds of other students in your own classes and in other classes, and getting to hear all the different things that are happening around the school that you may not be part of when other students are in the boarding house may be part of those. So it feels much more connected to the school and connected to the community.
To you, what do you think there are some advantages living here and like some kind of problems and issues that you faced during last year and this year?
Well, I think especially last year, one of my biggest issues was being distracted. When you're like best friends with your roommate, it's very easy to ignore schoolwork and just go hang out and have fun or whatever instead. And of course, that can definitely negatively affect your schoolwork. But also, if you're in any of the same classes, like I mentioned before, you can definitely help each other. It's a double-bladed sword, I guess, or however the saying goes. It can help or hurt. Just depends on how you use it.
Finally, what are some things that you have gained from living in a big house with so many people? Do you think that's will help improve your some kind of special abilities to living in a college or staying in the society?
I think when I first came here, or even before I came here, I was much more reserved, much less good at public speaking or speaking to people in general. I call myself, the kind of introvert who doesn't really ever want to talk to people. But I think losing so much privacy here has really helped me in becoming more of a the outgoing person. So I really, really do appreciate that. And I think it's going to benefit me hugely going on into college.
Yeah. Thank you for doing this with me.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Living in a big house is in some ways really exhausting, especially with over 14 people. Here, you need to tolerate people's bad behaviors and also be independent. But also among this unique process, you gain the knowledge of life, learning to be kind and helpful, but most importantly, knowing how to get along with other people. Growing is of course one of the hardest things in the world. However, once you finish it and look back the road you have walked, you will feel really achieved and really proud of yourself. This podcast is made by Xiaohan and Sebastian. Thank you for listening to this story today.
And now, school in 2020.
The 2020 school year has been crazy, to say the least. We have taken so many precautionary measures to help ensure we all stay safe from COVID-19. Everyone has been doing a great job keeping themselves and everyone around them safe. But at what cost? Is everyone doing okay in their lives?
My name is Vincent Spirit and I go to Youth Initiative High School.
So would you describe yourself as an introvert?
Yep.
So how has COVID-19 affected your daily life?
It really hasn't affected my daily life at all, except I have to wear masks outside. Nothing else about it.
So how is school going for you then?
It's going fine.
Why is it going fine?
I don't know, I'm learning, doing school things, no trouble.
Do you think that the pandemic has affected you differently because you're more of an introvert?
Nice. Differently than, I guess, more extrovert people, yeah.
In what ways?
I'm more introverted.
So how does that affect it?
I'm less social and I'm fine with it. I don't have a problem with just staying inside, doing whatever I want.
I'm Rowan Norden, and I'm in 10th grade in Youth Initiative High School.
Would you describe yourself as more of an introvert?
Yeah, I guess I would.
What does being an introvert mean to you?
I guess someone that would rather spend time by themselves than with other people.
So how has COVID-19 affected your daily life then?
Not that much, but I haven't really seen any friends much in person.
So how is school going for you then?
All right, it's a little hard when it's online or like with meetings. It can be weird, but it's fun.
So in what ways do you think this experience has affected you differently because you're more of an introvert?
I guess I've been spending more time online talking to people since I already was used to that before.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm Ayala, and I'm a 12th grader at Youth Initiative High School.
The first day of school, how optimistic were you that school was going to last?
I was not very optimistic at all, but I think it lasted a pretty good amount of time for the conditions that we're in. So.
Right, for sure. Do you feel that people were taking things seriously?
Yeah, I think everybody was doing a really good job of wearing their masks all the time and being conscious of social distancing. And I wasn't expecting it to go so well, just because we're just a bunch of students. But I think everybody handled it very gracefully, and they didn't complain a bunch. And yeah, did well.
Right, for sure. Looking back over the past 2.5 months, is there something that you would have liked to have done differently?
No. I mean, we've been asked this question a lot, like, what our personal opinions on this are, to try to help come to a nice answer that everybody will be happy with. But I think that we did basically the best that we could, and my knowledge isn't really going to help that at all.
Fair question, or fair point. Do you feel that you were getting out what you were putting in?
Yes, I actually think that I might even be getting more than I'm putting in, because my teachers over this you're talking about our microschooling period?
Yes. Do you feel that learning more virtual, do you feel that you were getting the same that you were before?
For this class, at least, I think yes.
And why do you say that?
Well, I'm in senior workshop, and a lot of it is just like work that we have to do by ourselves, and online and stuff on our computers. So I think it's basically the same as it would be if we had just normal school.
Do you feel that going into future classes, you will have the same outlook?
I'm not sure what my future classes will be, but but I don't know. It must really depend on the class. That's what my conclusion is.
Erica Broser.
And what do you do for the school?
I am a teacher and an advisor.
All right. The first day of school, how optimistic were you that school was going to last?
I thought we'd give it a good run, but I certainly also knew that it wouldn't last the whole year.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
in that iteration.
Right, I had the same feeling that it wasn't going to last much more than a couple months.
Yeah.
Did people seem to be taking things seriously?
With regards to COVID precautions?
Yeah, like wearing masks and
actually, like I vividly remember the, what did we do? We met before the first day of school, all of us, for something. What the heck was it?
Oh, the day before the camping trip?
When we all got together. Yeah, the day before the all-school meeting under the big top.
Yep.
And I vividly remember being blown away by the students wearing masks. We were together a long chunk of time.
Right.
And I really expected that to be a more difficult transition than it was.
Yeah.
So I think in the beginning, I think a lot of the faculty was pleasantly surprised at how easy the masking was. I think the more challenging part was just the human nature of wanting to, like, the 6 feet apart doesn't come naturally. So that was more of a challenge for all of us.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
Do you feel that you had to walk on eggshells because of hurting people's feelings?
As a teacher, no, I don't. Nope. I definitely was cautious, and I knew that, you know, we all land in different places with regards to just how we navigate COVID.
And now, parenting through the pandemic.
We talked with our host moms and dads,
our wives and friends,
and wove their words together
to create a conversation.
A conversation that never happened.
With original music.
We hope you enjoy.
Hi, Jiwan.
Hi.
Oi! Hi. So.
Should I get all my awkwardness out now?
Yeah, just shake it out. Okay, cool.
That's all it takes?
Yeah, it is. Now I'm feeling much more relaxed. I mean, some gross throat noises for you guys. Okay. I'm Selena, and we moved to Viroqua about a little over a year ago. And we live just outside of town, and we have one almost 2-year-old.
My name is Ashley. I have lived in Viroqua since 2015. I have a 10-year-old and also a 2-year-old.
My name is Loma Ha, and I'm G1's host mom.
I'm Matthew Voss, and I'm a host parent for 9 teenagers, boarding students.
Well, the beginning, when I think of that, I think of what happened right before COVID. Was Ashley and I were in this budding moms group, and we had we started a couple of things. We started like a weekly choir where we would all get together and sing.
The idea is that moms support each other while supporting each other's kids, and that could be like a day-long commitment. And the idea is you get used to like napping your kids together, cook meals together, feel comfort in mothering each other's children. The age of our toddlers, just learning how to be relational and comfortable around other people. Like, that's such an important thing to cultivate in such a young body.
My son had just turned 1. He was just learning how to walk, and I remember not the last time I saw Ashley, but one of the last times, Yulin, my son, he was practicing walking, and he stood up from me and he walked over into Ashley's arms, and it was so sweet, and you guys just hugged for a bit, and I was like, wow, this is so beautiful, and this is so important for Yulin. And then it stopped. He just got taken away from all of it right when he was just opening up and really getting comfortable with everybody. I think we had like 2 choir sessions and maybe 2 to 3 weeks of meeting, and then everybody was in, we were social distancing.
And it just feels like we have to be so careful now. We didn't used to. You could just go be at school or not, and you could have people over. And it was all just kind of really casual and flowing. And now it feels like everything has to be planned. It just feels like all our interactions are stiffer somehow.
Well, I think everyone just is with each other a lot more, which is nice, but sometimes a little overwhelming when you have everyone together all the time.
At that time, I had these new friendships, and then throughout that process of just staying home, I was really worried about my new friendships and my new community and what was going to happen with that. There was just so many unanswered questions. Nobody knew what was going on, but yet we all really wanted to know what was going on.
I feel bad for teenagers. They can't. Being social is so important to them, and to have that be restricted and kind of being the person or persons who are responsible for restricting that is not fun. Doesn't feel good.
You're always reminding me to wash my hands and wear a mask, and please don't go anywhere. You're very, maybe because your country, Korea, is so good at it.
We all had different levels of, or different understandings of what was going on, so it was hard to just figure it out.
I don't get to hug my friends. I don't get to sit close to them and laugh.
Oh, geez, I hope not. I don't know. I'm kind of an oblivious person, so I haven't noticed. Maybe people aren't supposed to be happy. I don't know. I think they should be.
Life's not as casual and fun and easy as it was. Everything has got this aura of fear around it, and how sad to be afraid to hug each other and to sit close. There's so much unknown that I don't know who to trust. And yet my nature is to trust. There is no interacting physically, basically.
We didn't see anyone for 2 solid months. We were pretty strict about that. I think that as we became comfortable with our own understanding of the virus and what we could do, thankfully it was summertime, so we kind of eased in with outside situations. Awkwardly seeing people no, I'm not gonna hug you. Yeah, no, oh, no, nope. It's just really weird new normals for the first time. But at least it was outside, so we could ease into those new comfort zones.
I started seeing one friend in particular who wasn't actually a friend at that time yet, but I remember her saying generally on Facebook earlier, does anyone want to go on a walk? And she would get a lot of angry face emojis back. You know how you can react to a post on Facebook? So obviously people were upset about that, and so I messaged her privately because no one was willing to see us yet, which was totally fine, but also I was just feeling kind of panicked and socially. So we put our kids in the stroller and we went for a walk. And my intention was to socially distant from her on our walk. But turns out toddlers don't do that very well.
It's been heartening to watch especially the teenagers kind of evolve and meet some of the challenges. This year it feels a lot better. People are, I think we're doing a better job too as a school, but I just think students have for better or worse have had some time to get used to it, and it seems like people are, or most people, not everyone, but most people are living healthier lives than they were last spring.
I was just making that choice to be all right, we'll see what happens, because we need to see somebody.
Have you seen any changes in your children? Including me.
You seemed more like a kid, and now you seem more like an adult.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
For me, when I was in Korea, my way to how to like get rid of my stress was going to karaoke. So I went there once a day.
Once a day? Oh my gosh.
But now in Viroqua there's no karaoke.
Because adults are pretty good at, like, you know, not leaving the house. Like, they're, you know, the older you get, the better you get at being alone or being quiet or being still or being, you know, moving more slowly.
I'm really, really glad that he also has the view of this is a time to be careful. I'm so grateful he's not a non-believer and that he's not going out to bars and stuff. He's very happy to stay home. And so is his girlfriend.
We've seen no one, so maybe we can find a family that has also seen no one and then decide to make a pod. Like, how does one go about making a pod? This is how I'm going to try.
How was your pod making adventures?
It failed pretty quickly.
Yeah. And I think what is beautiful of what I noticed about at least my closer friend group is that everybody has different comfort levels and everybody supports that, even though it's different than them. One element that I have totally thrown my hands up about is the idea that COVID is going to be over at any particular time. When this first started, I'm like, okay, but when is it going to be over? When can I start going back to normal life? Like, when can I start planning? When can I start doing all of this? And, you know, thinking about not getting pregnant until Trump's officially gone, till COVID's over, till all of these things, that felt so stressful because it felt like I was trying to control things that are just inevitably I cannot control them. 2 or 3 months in, a lot of the moms were like, all right, who's willing to mimic normal life for the kids?
Kids are resilient, and I think that over and over that just proves itself. In this scenario, like, we can over-intellectualize all the details and like what to do with changing scenarios, and they're just still happy kids.
Yeah.
We're creating their realities as long as we can keep it positive.
As long as they have a snack, it's all good.
As long as they have snacks.
All you have to do right now is this. So all I have to do right now is sit at this table and talk with you.
Yep.
Like you can't eat the whole meal in one bite. You just have to take a bite.
Right.
This is totally unnecessary, but I remember sort of a joke. How do you eat an elephant? And the answer is 1 bite at a time. So maybe the COVID is like the elephant.
Just continuing on despite all the things that feel like I should stop and wait until I figure everything out. But I'm not going to, and I'm essentially just saying that I'm taking things day by day, week by week, month by month. I feel a lot less pressure on myself to figure it out like I did in the beginning of all of this.
And I think it's pretty essential that we better find ways to feel happy, or we'll all go crazy or die of depression. So, no, I think we need to find and create joy wherever we can.
I'm just trying to put things in place to make it so that we're going to stay engaged, present, and satisfied with what's around us.
I hope nobody feels like they can't be happy. You should be happy, Gio.
Yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, good.
Brave New Social World, a podcast created by
Lucia Duffgay, Emma Crittens, Juwon Kim, Desmond Tiska,
Julie,
Coyote Merkel,
Amalia Gulian,
Vincent Sperry,
Dave Pollock,
Robin Bisgard,
Rowan Lorden,
Andrew Phillips,
John Neary, Sean Lavoie.
Be safe, be good, and be social.